So welcome to our first ever Corner to Corner Nonprofit Symposium. Obviously, we are stoked. I'm excited. I can't stop moving, so you might see me walking around like this.
I love it.
The entire time. But here at Corner to Corner, we like to do everything with a bundle of joy, excitement, and happiness. Always. You always see it's a party anytime you walk in, and a bunch of smiles. So we had an icebreaker to do, but there are more people here than we thought, which is a good thing. But it negates my icebreaker. But I might pick on a couple of y'all, if that's okay. So just flow with me here. So let me see. Who doesn't mind? Actually, Monique, she raised her hand. She raised her hand. So the icebreaker was we're gonna use the name tags, and I had a question for you based on blue. So I already said your name, but tell us your name and tell me your favorite food.
I think my favorite food is like lasagna and spaghetti.
Lasagna?
Sweet Italian. Right? Pizza, all of that.
Very cool, very cool. Can I pick on you, my man?
Go ahead.
He has on.
My name is Eric, and my favorite food is ribs.
Favorite restaurant to get ribs?
I cook at home.
Okay, so Rashida has on.
Rashida.
Okay, I heard it over here. Rashida, and favorite musical artist. Uh-oh.
Leanne.
Leanne?
About days this morning.
Okay. Gospel. Okay. How you doing, man? Welcome in. So tell us your name. Your superhero.
My name is Janet Newsom. I guess Martin Luther King.
Oh. That put us in a different position.
Yes.
For sure. One more person. Go ahead. Tell us, your name and your favorite food.
My favorite food would be eggplant lasagna.
Oh, wow.
Ask the other question, and I'm gonna start right here. Tell us your name and your favorite.
Okay. Go ahead and tell everyone. Hello, I'm as well, Academy alumni. I am Mama Love Organic as well, and I'm also here as a new business starter. I guess it's with business starting business. So I have a lot of hats. Would you say my favorite what? Binge on my recent. My recent binge has been. Like I just started watching like 2 months ago. Like it's always it's ended. So yes, that is my new recent binge.
Yeah.
And smiles to me, but I still watch. That's one thing.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all for graduates of the academy that we have in here. A few. All right, very cool. So, the academy, but I do want to give you a little bit of corner-to-corner information if you have not heard about our different programs. The family, we welcome you. So, Corner to Corner is a faith-based nonprofit, and we dive deep in equity on all fronts of our organization. That's what we do. A driving factor in the work. We approach programming, fundraising, and events with a spirit of abundance and curiosity. Programs. So let me tell you about a very small bit of each program. I can't go as deep as I. Many of you are familiar, as I said, with the Academy. The Academy is a 10-week program designed to provide with the tools they need to plan, start, and grow their business. After graduating the Academy, Amplify program. So at this point, I'll tell you, my name is Aeran Spicer. I'm the Director of Alumni, Amplify. The program is dedicated solely to offering resources, networking, and the alumni. We have Script to Screen, which is a creative after-school program that helps kids make their own movies. We have our Script to Screen red carpet coming up. Coming up soon. May the 12th. There you go. Thank you, man.
You got the hat and the knowledge.
Our Screen program. And then we also have the Coalition. The Coalition is dedicated to examining our own spheres of influence. This group works through individual reflection and insight while engaging sincere multicultural group discussions. So, nonprofit, co-creating meaningful economic growth with historically underestimated networks. Our vision is to see a Nashville where all neighbors flourish. So, if you want to learn more about social media, you can scan the QR code here. It has our social media information. Also, we'll get you connected so that you can receive our emails as well. So, receive when you walked in. Leland, I remember you sending me an email. How you doing, man? So, the three pieces. One, you have a that will allow you to take some notes. We'll have a presentation from Will here in just a second. The second at the end, but please fill out this survey. We would love your feedback. And the third is a blank note card. We'll collect those shortly, and then we'll dive in and ask them a ton of questions. So, the presentation today, or our symposium, is composed into two parts. We'll do a presentation where I'll ask a few questions, but most of this is geared toward getting all of your questions answered. A little bit about Mr. Will Acuff here.
You didn't ask me any questions. I'm curious about what you're about to say.
What I'm about to say. Will Acuff is just one part of the founding duo Corner to Corner. We have been working toward economic and educational equity since 2011, y'all. And we are right, seriously. When they founded Corner to Corner, Will was the executive director here at Corner to Corner, and he has phased out of the executive director position to play a very pivotal role in the growth and development of Corner to Corner. So we are very Will, a hand here.
And one of these days, I need to raise money just have a soup budget. Later, y'all, as Aeran said, Will Acuff, co-founder of Corner to Corner, along with my excited to spend some time with y'all today because you showing up says that you are investing that you are doing so that you can invest, right? So these little steps in the neighborhoods that we live in and for right? Super excited that we got Alicia and Aaron here, y'all. We're going to be hearing from in a little bit. But I remember going to so many. I came from a different world, right? I've never done anything in nonprofit. And everyone's like, oh, you just go raise the money. And I was like, that's okay. Just go ask the people for the money. Oh, how? You just go get the grants. How? Right? Nobody tells you how. And then you go down YouTube Scarcity, right? How many of y'all have YouTubed all the things that can be YouTube? Oh man, here's 15 minutes about this, but now sign up for my class for $5,000. Right? So the hope today is that we're going to do a little theory, a little practice, and then some next steps, right? Like what do you do tomorrow? Okay? What do you do tomorrow? And anything I miss, right? Because what does every nonprofit think about a lot? Money, right? We can answer this question. We think about money. And the big question that's under this is, how do I fund this work, right? Because there's not a single person in the nonprofit who hasn't been fully moved and changed in their life to start to have their heartbeat for a purpose that's bigger than themselves. All of us, if you're in this room, you've had that moment where you go, maybe you watched a documentary, maybe your mom got that diagnosis, right? Maybe you got involved in the school system. Whatever it was a before and an after for you. I used to be about this, but now I cannot look away from this, right? We've all had that moment, but we have to fund it somehow, right? How do we fund this work? How do we fund this calling? So the first thing we need to talk about is kind of mindset, right? Before we get into anything else, we got to talk mindset. Scarcity versus abundance. Scarcity says there is never enough, right? Say more what, right? Oh, more volunteers, more money, oh, more time, more technology, right? And the answer ends up always being something out there that we don't have yet. And I'm here to tell you today that you are the answer. Period. You are the most valuable asset to your organization, full stop. Right? There is no such thing as scarcity when you are bringing yourself fully to the table. And so we're going to start to work on, how do I shift from scarcity into abundance as the mindset. Abundance says there are enough resources in the form of talent, money, time, and people to do this good work, right? And I don't assume that everybody has the same faith background or is coming from the same perspective, right? So I leave that really open. But for me, right, I follow a God who says, I put this call on your heart and I will provide what you need to do the call, right? And maybe for you, that's the universe. Maybe that for you is just your passion is driving you, right? We don't all have to have the same answer for that. But when we serve out of abundance, we trust that the resources come as we step out in faith to do the work. Right? So true abundance, this is from Lynn Twist, her book, Soul of Money. If you're looking for a book that will just, right? The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. True abundance flows from enough, never from more. True abundance. And that is abundance of your spirit, abundance of your talent, right? And abundance as you engage with the community that you're working with and the funders that you're partnering with, right? And last thing on this mindset shift, abundance looks at money as just one more resource that is no more important or less important than any other resource that's coming to the table, right? But the world and the scarcity mindset is going to tell you money is the most important, right? That's some bullshit, right? I'm just going to say it like it is, right? I'm sorry, but I know we're live streaming, and Pastor Alicia, yes, get me. We can beep that out in post, right? No, it's live streaming. We got to cut the feed. No. All right, but true abundance flows from enough, never from more, okay? We're going to leave that there. Scarcity versus abundance mind shift. All right, so we're going to talk about a couple practical things. Annual giving, all right? And then major donor development, okay? think of these as two different revenue streams, right? So maybe another way to put this is like if you're a product company, right? You sell hats and you sell sweatshirts, right? These are two different product streams, okay? So annual giving and major donor development. And if you're in the early stages of your work, I would highly encourage you that these are the first two to focus on and start to learn how to get good at, right? And I say this from a place where when we first started, like I'll never forget, I looked up on LinkedIn, donor development people, right? I would buy them coffee and they'd always say, oh, you just need to start raising money. You know, you just need to start going out there and getting it. And I was so confused for so long. I made so many mistakes, right? And then I met this group, shout out to Seed Consulting. And we brought them in for a little consulting work. And they were like, oh, there's 7 different possible revenue streams for nonprofits, right? Here they are. And they laid them all out. And they were like, but in your stage of growth, just getting rolling, annual giving and major donor development is where you want to start. Get good at those for the next 2 to 3 years is what they told us, right? And that's what we've done. And y'all, the results have been incredible. So that's what we're going to dive into. Annual giving. So annual giving, y'all, theory, practice, next step. The theory here that we're going to talk about, conversion funnel. Who is familiar with a classic marketing conversion? Raise your hand. Anybody? A couple folks, right? So this is the same kind of conversion funnel you would use if you were launching a new, again, let's use the hat product company, right? I like hats, right? So you would be looking to get awareness from your target customer, right? Then consideration, and then conversion, right? Awareness, and I'll share all these slides with you guys, y'all. But brand awareness, first-time visitors, generate interest, educate, right? So just the basic idea, does somebody know you exist? That's awareness, right? And as we're getting started, as we're getting rolling, that's the first consideration. How do I get some brand awareness for the work that we're doing? But as you get aware, you want to move people into consideration, right? Evaluation of brand and products. So consideration for corner to corner is, like Jaron did a great job of saying, hey, a little bit of what we do, right? That was like that awareness side. Now, 1 or 2 of you are going to go, you know what's interesting? I'd like to learn more about that coalition program. So I'm going to go to the website and read up. Now you're in consideration phase, right? And then maybe one person, because you see the funnel's getting smaller, right? Because it is a myth to think that everyone is your target customer. They are not, right? I heard somebody say, Christy said, I love eggplant parmesan, right? I'm a vegetarian. I love vegetables. And I don't like eggplant parmesan, right? For whatever reason, it's never resonated with me, you know? And that's okay because everyone is different, right? And so we don't want to make the mistake that we fail or we're not doing a good job if not everyone is our target customer. We don't want to make the mistake, right? Or feeling like we fail if not everyone is our target customer, right? And the trap when you're the one who beats with the heart and the passion is to go, oh man, when you reject me, when you reject my idea, you're crushing my soul, right? I remember one of the first things we did for Corner to Corner, because I wanted some saints praying as we got this thing rolling, and we would do some prayer meetings at my house on our front porch. And one time I got everything ready. We had the food, we had everything ready, and 0 people, exactly 0 people showed up. And I was like, what do I do with all this food, right? And I awkwardly did like the reverse of selling something, right? I just knocked on people's doors and was like, here's some food, right? Now the neighbors, they liked me more after that, right? But I couldn't get anybody for the prayer meeting, right? And we've all been in those moments. So we don't want to make the mistake that the conversion funnel looks like this. It is a triangle, okay? We are getting fewer people as we come down. Now, conversion itself, that is where you really start to get into the details of your work, right? And then a conversion, depending on what you're going for, if it's volunteer engagement, right? Conversion would be someone signs up to volunteer. If it's donor, then somebody pays money, right? That's the conversion activity, okay? So I want to pause real quick right there. Maybe 1 or 2 questions on this idea, the conversion funnel. This is our theory for annual giving. Anybody have a burning question? Yeah. Just a regular question. It can be a regular question. Yeah.
Okay. For your nonprofit, I'm looking at the awareness part.
Yeah.
What are some tactics that you use to kind of get brand awareness out? I'm thinking with the marketing mind, but I also like to know it sounds like you get some prayer meetings. Any other in-person stuff that maybe we can think about?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And we're gonna get into some practical stuff here. On that awareness side, you wanna be looking first at your own sphere of influence that already exists, right? And if you write that out, like honestly, take 20, 30 minutes and write that out, right? What do I do in a week? Oh, I might, I've got that group of girlfriends I hang out with on Tuesday night. Have I asked them to do like a wine and cheese night to share about this? Like if you write out what you're doing in a week and where your spheres of influence are, you'll get some really practical ways. Hey, welcome to do some brand awareness. Okay. All right. So awareness, consideration, conversion. This is the theory behind annual giving. Okay. Because annual giving by definition, these are small donors that are going to be one-time donors that then you are cultivating into monthly donors, right? So your first ask might be say Ryan and his basketball training program, Ryan back here, y'all. He might say, hey guys, for $50, you can equip 5 girls with uniforms for this season, right? That's a one-time thing, and he can do a campaign, right? And we're looking for 20 people to do $50, right? And he starts to celebrate that, right? So he's raising that money, he's celebrating the activity of the community, right? And then out of those 50 people, or those 20 people who do the $50, right? A handful of them, if you continue to communicate and invite them into opportunities for generosity, will become your monthly givers, right? So, but that's what the whole annual giving campaign is about. Cool? Awesome. That's our theory first. Practice. Let's get into the details. What are you actually talking about? What is going to go on in this brand awareness campaign? 2 things, stories and stats, okay? Stories and stats. We overthink this or we get paralyzed. So how many, myself included, have been in that moment where you open Instagram and you feel pretty good about your life, right? Things are going well. And then 5 seconds later, you feel awful when you see all the brilliant things that other people are doing, right? And I'm not talking about the vacations that I can't even imagine, right? I'm talking about the other nonprofits where they have this ad campaign, they got this thing, right? And you feel your shoulders go down, right? And I think when we get into that place, sometimes we get paralyzed, right? But I'm here to encourage you, the vision that you have, right, for how you'll execute and what you're able to do today looks like this. And that is okay. You only get to this by doing it again and again and again and again and again. Right? And what you do are story stats, okay? So don't think more complicated, just stories. What kind of stories? People, right? You. Hey, I'm the founder of this org. I'd love to tell you about me. I'd love to tell about the moment I was walking down the street and I feel like just this idea came to me to bless my neighbors. Right? Tell that story. Your community members. Hey, this is so-and-so, our first volunteer. They're incredible. Look at what they're doing, right? That kind of story. Someone who's benefited from the work you're doing. Your partners. So Alicia's here, y'all. She was one of our best partners ever at the Magruder Family Resource Center when she was running that out in North Nashville. And we did all sorts of co-branding. Where it was like, look at Alicia, look, feature this partner, okay? So stories about people, places, your city, your neighborhood. And don't do the generic, like, whatever, welcome to Music City. We've got Broadway guitars, right? Like, put me to sleep, right? Show me your neighborhood, right? Here is where I go for when I'm on the way home for dinner and I want to take out. Oh gosh, y'all, I go here because look at this, right? Show me your life, your city, your neighborhood, where your work is happening. Okay. And then the details, right? So these are the stories, the details of how does the work go. And don't assume that if you told them once, they remember that Instagram post you made 3 months ago.
Right.
Tell that story over and over and over again. Okay? What kind of stats? From a numerical standpoint. So I'm using Brian as an example here, but he could say, you know, our record was this. We trained this many girls. We go back to the practical nature. What are you actually doing? These are the things you're doing for your annual gift. Tomorrow. 4 action steps, y'all. You're going to create social channels if you I don't mean your personal social channel, I mean your organization's social channel. You're going to create a web landing page, right? And your work is a critical piece to show that you are an actual very too often smaller orgs where they just have a Facebook page, right? And that's great. Right? So for example, a website where you have a little donate button. Sign up form, right? These are some legitimizing factors that people will look at as they get. That should say, and make a social calendar. Okay? A social calendar is activity you're doing, right? So, oh man, we have that event in mid-April. Team meetings, right? Write that out and start to form content around it, you know? What stories am I going to tell about this event, right? What partners am I going to highlight? What behind the scenes Facebook Live am I going to do to show the community we're getting ready, right? It's those kind of things. But you map out that calendar and you don't crush yourself with it, right? And I'm saying that from the perspective of someone who went to all of these kind of trainings and everyone's like, why don't you have like a 4 post a day social calendar already? I'd be like, we're like a one-man shop and I have a day job. Like, what else do you do? Right? Right? Like, and that drives me bananas when people say that. So start where you are and approach yourself with compassion. Right? Intention with compassion is the key to longevity. Right? Intention with compassion is the key to longevity. Intention that starts with yourself, then flows to your family, right? Then flows to your community. And I'm huge on this because I've seen people burn out. Families out, and they're like, but I'm loving the community so good that my wife thinks I hate her. What? Right. The good work, yes.
So with the, thing like on the website.
Yep.
That's something I need to do, and so I paid for the year or whatever.
Yep.
So what's the easiest, one?
Yeah, it's a good, very good practical question. So Stripe is a really easy plug and play one.
So is that where you just swipe it on that little thing?
No, it's a company called Stripe, and website use Stripe plugin, right? A lot of these are called plugins. If you use that language, big believer in do more of what you're good at and get right?
Yes.
And I couldn't do that personally, right? But I do know some young like fish in water, right? And so you start to go through, you're like, oh, my net took me 5 hours, right? But yes, so Stripe as a payment gateway would be a really easy. It's great.
What's Apple Cash App? Is that not a good one?
I wouldn't say don't use things that will give you money through, like Cash App and Venmo, I think are good tools. But if your website's main driving, it's probably not going to be Cash App. Yep. We take all kinds. If people want to give me money, I want to figure out how to say yes. Yeah. All right. The last, collect email addresses always. This one took forever. Right. Get email addresses wherever you are, whether it's your event, whether you're networking. Like, you want to build out your email list so that you start with whatever 10, 15, 20 from your family group, right? But then you move on to go, all right, I did that event, I got 10 more emails, right? You build up that, put it in a spreadsheet, and start to do email marketing with it. Yep. Everybody tracking with that? You guys good? Okay, sorry, cool. Awesome. Create social channels, create a website landing page, and make a social calendar, collect email addresses. Austin, would you grab my charger from underneath my desk? My battery is about to die. That's another thing that always happens, right? You get that little warning there. All right, major donor development. I'm gonna wait for Austin. Any questions on annual giving before we shift to the major donor development? Yes.
I got a question. So how do you know what the important stats are?
Yeah, so approach that with curiosity and a spirit of playfulness. And so what I mean is, I would look at the kind of work you're doing, right? And say, okay, over the last 12 months, how many girls came to training programs?
Right.
Okay, cool. Right? Out of all that we worked with last year, how many girls actually committed to a team and went through a whole season? You know? Hey, do we have any data yet on girls in our program, how their performance at school changes?
Okay.
Oh, we don't. We should probably get that. That'd be great. You know what I mean? Like,
So in other words, keep track. So like, for example, every time report cards come out, first thing we do when you walk in the gym, what's your grade?
yep,
So
absolutely.
So I'm supposed to keep
track
track of that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you want to track the story you're trying to tell, right? So the data is just a storytelling point. So like, we don't ask anybody their shoe size at the academy. Organization like Souls for Souls, right? Like, who's trying to give away as many shoes. Like, our most popular donated shoes is size 9. We got 5,000 of them this year. Y'all, this year we're trying. So wherever your focus is. Yep. There was one other question, I think. Yes.
Because I'm not making any money right now.
Yeah.
I like put $100 in it and then like. Any suggestion about it?
Yeah, that is a tough one. So directly, but there's two ways to go about that, in my personal opinion, which is to put 1,500 in there and avoid those fees. You know, raise it via cash for that initial. Your first donor, or you know, a first major donor, which we're about to go into. Hey, I'm asking. Here is the vision, and in order to pull off this launch, here are the 3 key pieces we need. And maybe one of them is, you know, our banking relationship, because we're going to be a kick. Relationship needs to start strong. You invest 1,500 to get that going. Yep.
Business accounts that will actually charge you fees. Like one of them like Novo. So if you not brick and mortar, some of them will come up and they'll show you a list and they don't have fees attached to them.
Regent's been charging like $7 a month.
Oh yeah, no, I got $12 a month from SunTrust for the. Yeah, I was like, y'all, $12, like, yeah, that's a great question. Major donors, these are individuals who are passionately behind your work. Passionately behind your work, all right? That's the key phrase. Relationship that won't let you be yourself, right? Now, Oprah was talking about love. We're going to steal this and bring it over to donor work because you can think that money means you don't get to work in the way that is most natural to your heart.
Wow.
Right? Yes. And what you end up doing for the money rather than being you for the money.
Come on,
and what will happen? Right? Anybody ever felt that internal misalignment?
No, yes.
Where you start, right? And like I heard from somebody the other day, a major donor officer, I would just feel so much pressure and so much like honest anger to be in that meeting, right? So you do not have to do that. With a vision where you are going to be yourself and you're going to present your passion. And again, scarcity says you better figure this out quick. Abundance says, right? Okay, so don't settle for a relationship that won't let you be yourself. Why this quote? All right, actual practice. Create a list. Create a list. This work it has capacity to give. Those two things, right? Put it in a Google Sheet, right? A Google spreadsheet. Put it in an Excel file. Thing to capture, right? But create that list and don't overthink it. Last time I saw my cousin at that barbecue, he showed up in that car, right? So maybe that stuff, right? Just look first for who heard about the work and was like, yes, that, and then maybe has the capacity to give. Okay? Put it into a Google Sheet. That's y'all, is you are going to reach out. You're going to make that list, and then you're going to make a purposeful connection. And I wrote up this sample. You can use anything you want. But hey, nonprofit community project, I was telling you that I did it. Right? Go on a walk. Like whatever you're already doing, you know that person is already doing. Looking for early stage investors, and I thought of you. I think you'd love it where if you got a co-founder, passion for blank. There's a time that works for you to get together, right? You have to make clear that that you want to share this vision and that you're looking to potentially have them invest. Right? Nothing's worse than getting that call from that old friend you haven't heard from in a minute, right? It's been like, we'll get together. I'm going to spend some time with me. It's going to be great. And then they're like, so, thing that I'm working on, right? You want to get in on this, right? I got invited to somebody's going away party, and I was like really touched. Oh man, they're moving out of town. Good. I go to this place, and it's a multi-level marketing presentation. Furious, right? I was so mad, and not just because in our relationship, right? It didn't matter how good. No, right? So you never want to be in that position. So be upfront, be honest. Really, I don't know why you thought I was into that. I'm not into that.
Right.
You'd be like, cool, I'll see you at grandma's house tomorrow. No, they're not your people. And that's okay. 4 action steps, y'all. We're gonna write out a list. We're gonna reach out. And we're gonna update the spreadsheet weekly. I do this on Mondays for through boom, the whole list. I have major donors, I have mid-level donors, and then I have connectors. Mid-connectors. Because connectors are those people in our lives who love to get involved, but would love to line us up with several friends, right? Everybody got that? Write out list, reach out, meet, update spreadsheet weekly. Really important. I remember when people were like, "You need major donors." I was like, "What is that?" Right? Somebody said, "Pick a number that would be big to you." Right? Right? So for corner to corner, what we think about with major donors, annually, right? I know other orgs where for them that starts, oh my gosh, that's amazing, right? Like one day. But for us, that's $50K. Tell somebody really transparently, I would love to have you be on our major donor team, right? And ideally, honestly, it'd really help us to budget well if you would invest at the 5K level for the next 3 years. Right? Yes?
So do you know, fun? Do you like give different?
Some people really love that idea. I've never. I know other, and we're about to have this forum here, and maybe Alicia and Dr. Baskin. We started 5,000 was not our major donor number, right? Major donor was like, would you come to the table with $500? That would significantly move the needle for us, right? Isn't the point. It's what is that number for you at this point in your growth. But start with that number and stick to that number for at least the next 12 months. 500. Just kidding. Next week it's 1,000, right? And you'll suddenly start to second guess yourself. Get into the flow, not into the grind with this, right? Because grinding, right? Flowing in the work will lead to joy for you and the people you're working with. All right, it's time for our forum. Do you have introductions for?
Yep, I do.
Awesome.
Thank you, Will. That was amazing. I saw a lot of y'all with your heads down and a lot of writing. It was quiet in here, very quiet, except for the random like keys dropping and whatnot. So within that short presentation that Will did by show of hands, how many learned something? Good. Did y'all get a chance to write questions down? Nobody wrote questions down. So nobody asked questions. You wrote a question down. Huh? You wrote a question down? Okay, perfect. We'll definitely get to those in just 1 second. So everybody was taking notes. Can somebody quickly tell me what the first next steps that Will talked about?
Create social channels. Create social channels.
For
Create a website landing page, make a social calendar, and collect email addresses always.
Yeah, at the end of this, get with Amanda. We're gonna send you a gift card. Yeah. Perfect. So thank you for paying attention. For sure. So we're gonna get your questions for those who wrote them down. Marcia, you back there? If y'all can, who wrote down a question? Alon, you wrote that. We got a couple. You put on the board. Okay, we'll just get to them. Just hope. Never mind, Marcia. We'll get to the questions answered. But before we go into this, obviously I'm extremely excited because we have some experts in the building. Y'all heard a little bit about Will, but I want to tell you about our other two panelists. In the middle, Alicia Haddock has been a prominent pillar in the Nashville area for many years. Right now, she is the Vice President and Director of Community Impact at the Housing Fund here in Nashville, in which she focuses on providing resources and leadership to help maintain affordable and healthy places in which low to moderate income people live. Prior to the Housing Fund, she led the Magruder Center, we'll mention that, located in North Nashville, by bringing and enhancing many resources to lives of multiple community members while leaving a lasting impact. And she also is a board member here at Corner to Corner, my favorite board member. So y'all give it up for Alicia Haddock. And we have Dr. Aaron Baskin. Do you want me to say Aaron or Dr. Baskin? There we go. Dr. Baskin. Dr. Baskin is an advocate and storyteller who deeply believes in serving children and families. She strives to create reflective and restorative spaces that will ensure that Black families and children, specifically girls, have the experiences, community, and resources that will propel them into purpose and position them to become leaders and advocates within their own communities. She has worked across sectors in child welfare, education, leadership coaching, college access and support development, and equity. Aeran began her career as a child welfare attorney in Detroit, Michigan. She earned a BA from Howard University, a JD from the University of Michigan Law School, and her doctorate in education leadership from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Let's give it up for Dr. Baskin.
I'm gonna get off the couch, y'all.
Yes. So we're going to try to squeeze in as many of your questions as possible. Obviously, there is a wealth of knowledge up here. I do kind of want to start by asking y'all just an open question. Anybody can feel free to answer. So we talk a lot about engagement and welcoming people into the work. So what are some effective ways to do that? I know Will mentioned a few within his presentation when he talked about awareness, but Alicia, Dr. Baskin, do y'all have some thoughts on that?
Dr. Baskin first.
So welcoming people into the work. So I'll give you a little bit more background in terms of my fundraising experience. But I used to work. I ran development for Teach for America in Rhode Island for about 2 years, and our donor base typically ended up being mostly individuals, and so high net worth individuals. So a lot of major donations and also annual giving. And how we welcome people into the work was through hosting different events. Mm-hmm. So some of that was having an opportunity for people who were interested in our work to meet our teachers. And so that was a big thing that we did. And we were also make sure that we were visible at major events that were happening within our community. So I think one big important thing is to actually understand what's actually going on within your own community, especially things that are going on with your community that actually touch your work. And so whether that's a conference or another community event or what another nonprofit is doing, it's kind of even being there and making yourself like visible, making yourself present, and often meeting people. That's an opportunity to welcome people into your work. And so if you have events that are going on or a conference or different things that are happening within your organization, inviting people that could potentially be donors, or I consider them friends, essentially. You're inviting them to come and volunteer. You're inviting them to see what you're about. You're inviting them for coffee, as Will was saying before. So really, I think of it a lot like dating, essentially. And you're just meeting someone to get a sense of, do I want to date you long term? Do you want to date me long term? And so as you're cultivating that friendship, you get to know each other more, get more of a sense of what I actually be committed to this person or not.
Yeah.
That's great.
Welcoming people into the work is so interesting just because when you're in the community and really when you're thinking about nonprofits, passion is what really brings you to the work. And you're lucky to do the work because people invite you to help them. We always, we get confused because we want to think that we're so good and, that we get to help people. But when you really think about it, people allow us to help them. That's what makes the work so special. Not that we get to go out and be captains, right, with our capes on, but people allow us to help them. And so when we get the opportunity to invite people to do the work, what if someone comes to us and they allow us to help them? That's how we invite people to do the work, right? So what if someone comes to us and they allow us to help them, and then they in turn start working with us, and then one day, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, they're the ones who participate in their own liberation. And then now they are helping someone, right, with a hand up. And then for whatever reason, they're running a nonprofit. And they are now the one that is, creating opportunities for participation and inviting someone to do the work. So really kind of creating these cycles of, like I was saying, liberation, and not just from a donor standpoint, because that's going to come, right? Because if you stay steadfast, I remember when we were getting it, right? We were doing those $500, this is our goal, right? And then now we're doing, some things that we were talking about many, many years ago, and we're hitting goals that we thought were going to be long away from now. But, I think when you start from places where you are encouraging participation and you're looking from where you want people to who had little opportunities. I think about Jared when I was a little girl growing up in North Nashville. And nobody thought anything good could come from North Nashville. Y'all are from Nashville. When you roll down Buchanan Street, it was not cute at all. And now it looks differently. It's Buchanan Arts District now, right? That's something different. And then, the community looks so much different. And the Brewer Center became a place where a lot of people did not think you could come and find opportunities and you can start a business, but now you can. Corner to Corner is now a refuge and a place where Jared can come and have a fashion business and figure out how to make it happen for not just you, but other entrepreneurs. But what does that mean when we invite people into this space? You can find places in North Nashville where you couldn't find that before, at least within the last 20 years. So that means we're now inviting people into these spaces. That's what that means. You couldn't find opportunities like that. So that's why I think we have to kind of create spaces, Lonnie, you know, that looks differently. And you have the power to do that. It's not just one thing. It's not one prescription. We don't, you know, Will gave a really good synopsis of how to get that done, but you can write that in your own way from your own community. If you're from East Nashville, North Nashville, you write that. You're the author of that.
Very good. Will, you know, you've been doing this since 2011. Alicia, Recruiter Center, now the Housing Fund. Dr. Baskin, you've been in the nonprofit industry for a while. What are a few things, I guess, like within the first few years of you guys working in the nonprofit sector, would you say, I should have did this differently, or I should have started here? And then we'll get into some of y'all's questions.
I can start. So I think when I first got into development, I kind of fell into it essentially. And I walked in my first day, and I think someone told me that development essentially was relationship building. And I remember thinking, like, I was thinking mostly about the numbers, and not necessarily about the people and the passion and the work that really was essentially kind of fueling the numbers. And so I think the thing that I would have loved to have known is that fundraising is essentially, it is relationship building, and it is also like an exchange of energy, right? And so essentially, like, when like, it feels kind of weird depending on what your background or your relationship is with money to go in and ask someone for money, right? Because you may be taught that you're not supposed to talk about money, let alone ask somebody for some money. And I definitely know that that was my background. And so when I began to see that a donor who was giving me funds was essentially excited about being a part of the work that I was doing. And so when I asked someone to join our work and to contribute however much money, whether it was like $500 or $50 to like however much amount of money, they were getting an opportunity to actually do our work with us. And so essentially what happened, like with us, like we're getting to partner with one another. And essentially what happened was an energetic exchange where we both got to be lifted up. I did more of the work that was important to our organization, and they got a chance to be able to contribute to part of that work. And so it didn't feel so creepy or weird to ask somebody for money because of the fact that I was just like, I'm just basically inviting my friends to come in, like, do this amazing work with me. And I think that that's one thing that I would have absolutely loved to have known. And also kind of like down the vein of this being about building a relationship and you're dating and like all of these kind of metaphors. Basically, you know, you're doing people work essentially. Is that to make sure that you're having these touch points with people. And so different people want different things. And so, you know, some people may say, I would love to like have coffee with you once every 6 months. And as you get to know that person, that becomes the cadence of your relationship with them. It's where you have coffee and you tell about what the work is going on, and then you're like, hey, so this is what we would love for you to do to contribute. And they're like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm in for it. But then there are also other people that may say, they may really love it when you send them an article. They may really love it when you invite them to an event, or when you just show up. Maybe not show up, but like not pop up, but like show up at their church or like an event that they're also involved in. So there seems to be some type of like investment in the relationship to show like ultimately like these are people, like you're a person, I'm a person, we're all humans. And so they're not just dollars, and they want to be treated as such. But then there's also people who are just transactional and don't want all of that. They just want to know every year how much you want me to give you, and I'm going to give you that amount, and that's enough. And I will say too, along with the relationship component of it, it doesn't necessarily always have to be something that's happening in person. It could be like you send your newsletter out, once every month or 2 weeks or whatever the case that you're deciding. It's just having these small touch points with people to let them know that one, that they matter, and then two, to let them know what you're doing, and then three, to let them know how they can get involved.
Sounds like multiple ways to make contact with somebody besides just thinking in the box.
And that
Perfect.
energy exchange is so good. Like when you're working with the right partners, you leave a meeting and you're floating and they're floating, And when you're working with the wrong partner, you step out of the meeting and you feel like you were just spending time with an emotional vampire. Right? Yeah, take them off the list.
They just drain their.
Oh.
But Dr. Baskin, you are so right. I think depending on how you grew up, and especially, if you're talking about coming from the African American community and just the circumstances of your birth, right? Sometimes it just wasn't enough, right? The money wasn't there. We didn't have it. And so you kind of come with this mindset, it's not enough. But what I've learned, there's always enough. We'll talk about, scarcity and abundance. And sometimes when you're talking about nonprofit, you'll get those no's, like, no, you didn't get the grant. Dr. Baskin, she's a grant writer, right? And so I'm sure she's gotten a lot of yeses, but I know you've gotten some no's. For sure. Right? But don't let that deter you because the money is there. And you set your goals and you get the money because it's there. The state has it, the federal government has it, foundations have it, and so you keep writing those grants, you ask for unrestricted funds, you do the annual giving, you get the money, even when they tell you no. And so that's the importance of really being intentional about it, praying about it, right? Because God will open doors for you.
Yes, He will.
Or that window.
That window.
They close the door and you're like, that window over here is open.
And those little will be stuck in the water, open that window up and those blessings will come flowing out. And I mean, literally, and not only are you stepping out on faith, but you have to believe it. And I'm talking about something that's so very real, right? And so it's not just about, things that I've heard about. These are things that I know.
Yeah. Yep.
And you really do have to believe it because the money is there. I remember in my master's program, it was a women's leadership program, and it was focused on nonprofit leadership. And the one thing that the president of the college drills into us is that the resources are there. And that's the one thing you have to believe, especially in nonprofit. Because it's really designed to tell you that you gotta just like be a hamster on the wheel. I mean, you gotta work for it, but the money is there. And so first you go in knowing that. Because right now you put that $100 in your account and those bank fees are eating it up, but you be intentional about it and you have to set those and you get those funds. And two, really not just making and setting those goals, but then also changing your mindset, right? And understanding that in nonprofit leadership, it's not just about the passion, but about the intentionality, right? So it has to be more than just passion that fuels you. You have to really know what you're doing. It's the craft.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people want to do good, but doing good is not going to help, set your nonprofit up for success. You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah. And to that, y'all, like, you don't have to know what you're doing to the level where, like, on any given day, you can give somebody, like, an essay, right?
Right.
But you set the direction, right?
Right.
I want to serve, I keep going back to Ryan, but, like, I want to train young girls in basketball excellence to also improve their literacy and their school performance, etc., right? Well, what age group? Well, we're going to start with junior high age for phase 1. Awesome. What's phase 2? Don't know yet. Right? Like that's okay. You start with a clear focus and then you build on it. Because sometimes everybody wants the end of the book where you haven't written the first chapter, right? So be okay with where you're at, but speak with clarity and intention. Yeah.
Very cool.
Questions from the audience?
Yeah, that. I'm looking at my phone because I got some questions through email. One came from Tawana, and we'll have to kind of deep dive a little bit more at some point. But she did have a question, and she asked, I think ties in with the funding part. She would like to know at what point can you start accepting donations for your nonprofit, because she has people that already know her idea that want to write her checks now, but she can't accept them because she doesn't have a nonprofit set up yet.
So if you meet with an attorney, whether that's somebody you're paying or somebody that you've talked into doing some pro bono work or whatever, right? And by the way, that took me like 6 months to find the person to do the pro bono work. That was a lot of awkward meetings with lawyers I couldn't afford, right? I was like, sweet, I give this $5 copy and I cannot pay you that $2,000. But as soon as they go ahead and start the filing process, you can go ahead and raise funds, right? And they'll backtrack the date of the start of when you get the approval from the IRS. So for us, that was like a 4 to 6 month wiggle room that they were able to backdate. But I personally would not feel comfortable raising funds unless that process was underway. Yep.
Okay, so I do want to get some questions from the audience. If you can, make sure your question is pretty direct, just for time purposes. We want to get as many questions answered as possible. He threw his hand up quickly. But Ryan, yeah, go right ahead.
I'll make it quick. My partner, how we got in trouble, not bad trouble, but started with seven girls like 5 years ago. Now it's over like 100.
Yep.
So our attitude has always been, man, you're not gonna help us. You're gonna tell us no anyway, because you said the girls got a bad attitude. You say ain't nobody gonna do nothing, so we're gonna do it ourselves. So we know for a fact, I can tell you, a girl to play travel basketball, it's probably gonna cost about $1,000. I know they don't have it. So what we do, what I got with him, so he creates the coordination for fundraising, like Bridgestone, Nissan. If they got an event, he's there, parents can go there, we raise money for the kids, we raise money for nothing. But the problem we have, that attitude's been fine, but now I don't know how to go into somebody's office and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how you can help us. I don't know how to do it because I've been doing it alone. So how am I supposed to ask? Because I don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of structuring the donor story based off of the certain nonprofit?
Well, I'd love to hear what you guys think, and then I've got some thoughts on that question.
So really, are we asking for a translator? Is that what you're saying?
No, you know what to say.
I mean, I guess I know what to say, but I don't know how to
Say it.
Yes, if I sit down in the office with you, I don't know how to say, hey, here's what we're doing. And
You're
you say,
saying
well, most people say, how do you keep stats? I don't know. Only reason I know is because the kids keep coming back. They bring a friend, and I know each kid. I know each kid. Like,
Yeah.
I know them.
That's what he said, right?
Yeah. How to say, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No, that's great.
No. What I'm saying to you is, you have it,
Right. Yeah.
right? You have all of it. You just need to know how to say it.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
And so what I would suggest is, do you have it written down?
Written down all of we do.
Yep.
And how you would write down the ask.
Yeah, we got a website and everything. I just don't know how I'm supposed to say it.
Yeah. So yeah. Go ahead.
Would that be the executive summary?
That could be, but like again, relationship is what drives the yeses, right? And often when we get into fear mode around money, right? Which like my dad's a pastor, right? Like I grew up in one of those churches where you like ride your own folding chair, right? Office of a gas station kind of vibe, right?
Yeah.
And anytime it was like, oh, so the desk, like you're walking to a meeting and the desk is like bigger than I thought a room could be, right? What do I do, right? I've had those moments. But when we start getting into that place, we stop speaking from the heart and we start speaking from what does this person want to hear that will get the money, right? And that you might still get a little money, but it's going to be a trickle instead of the flow, right? And so my encouragement would be write out what you genuinely want to say, right? It could be as clear as we've helped 100 girls to date. This help has looked like what travel basketball, team, practice, homework help, right? All the things. Walk alongside their families in joy and in sorrow. And the outcomes have been that we've seen girls flourish in school and on the court, right? We have served 100 girls, and next year we're looking to serve 50 more, right? Whatever the growth plan is, we're looking for investors to come on right now at $2,500 per year. Would you be one of those investors? You know, so it has to
And the important thing is that it has to be your voice.
100%.
It can't be anybody else's. And so that's why I say you have to write it.
Write it out.
Right? Now, we can help you, right?
Yeah.
Like articulate it, and kind of structure it, but it has to be your story.
Right.
Yep. And get in front of the mirror and practice.
That's right. It has to be in your voice. It has to be your story because that's your program. That's y'all's thing. And so how you structure it, kind of like the flow, you can get help with that, but it has to be your story. We have to get really good at telling our own story. That's what we have to, really get comfortable in because we're so used to, in America, somebody telling our story. We got to stop that. Right? So once we get good at, you get good at that, can't nobody stop us.
Yep.
So I just one thing.
No, I just wanted to piggyback off of what you said because I used to feel the same way. And the thing is, I would say that to my team, like, I don't know how to ask money. I don't know how to say that this is what we're doing. And then like what you're saying it. And I'm like, no, like I'm not. And it really all boiled down to fear and confidence. And so if you have the passion around it, you just have to change your approach as to who you're speaking to. So if I know that I'm speaking, I work with the unhoused community. So I work with people who are homeless and looking for housing. That's a different approach. If I'm speaking to someone who I know has grant money, then I'm like, hey, we've had this many outreaches, these are the amount of people we serve, and this is how you can get involved, back to what Will said. So if they know that they can be a benefit and build a relationship with you, they're gonna do that. And if you're going to parents who know their kids want to play basketball, then your approach is not gonna be that, because they don't care about that. Hey, I travel with kids and you seem like your daughter is talented and we can do this. So your approach is different, formal, informal, but it's really about what your passion is and like what they're saying, use your voice. Because we already run it, we already do it. It's really about confidence and just knowing what you're talking about.
Right. Dr. Baskin, did you have something?
The only thing that I would add is just like letting go of the need for perfection in that situation. Because like everyone's been saying, like you've been talking about this work since you've been doing this work. And so it's like if you've been talking about this work to your family members across the table, like that's the same conversation that you can have with someone across a desk or a coffee table or whatever else. There's no difference. And when you're coming from a place of like essentially like perfection, and I think I have to have the right things to say, people will pick up on that energy and they will be uncomfortable or whatever because of the fact that you are. So allowing yourself to just like be honest and be authentic, be yourself, and also like allow the stories of your girls to drive the conversation, right? Because it's not actually really about you. And so like when you are like centering yourself in the sense of saying like, how can I do this? It's like it's about you, but it's not. It's really about the girls. And so like telling their stories, being having that conversation, and also like allowing yourself to play in those spaces, because I know that they can feel really high and high intensity, but when you're coming from a place of thinking that it's high intensity, you're not coming from a place of abundance, recognizing that like your people will come to you. It can come to you actually with ease, right? It can come to you through a place of flow, and that you don't have to labor for it, you don't have to struggle for it, you don't have to hustle for it. Like if you're in the mindset of that, like this is for me, it's out there. No one, no thing, no entity, no nothing can actually keep me away from it. Then it starts starts to not care as much when someone else says no, because it's kind of like at the end of the day, I know I'm gonna raise my money. Like if you say no to me, well, you're gonna move out the way. The other person gonna get my money and go ahead and give it to me. And talk from that place of that confidence.
That's very cool. Hold on, Monique. We have a lot of questions. If you can direct your questions specific as possible. We are on a time constraint here. Francis, you had a question up front.
Yeah, in terms, good to see you both in good health. FYI. In terms of implementation, how important is a needs assessment and a community engagement plan in terms of deploying the services that you're trying to provide?
It's very important. And that's a good question. When I got to the Magruder Center, I did not change a thing for 6 months. Just because, and that's a community, I grew up in North Nashville, so it wasn't like I didn't know the need. It wasn't like I didn't know the community. Half the people that came in there were either my cousins or my neighbors, right? And so, but I wanted to clearly hear each person's voice personally. So I intentionally and actively listened. So that was my needs assessment. And I had data, right? I collected data, different types of data. I wanted to know those things. So I saw it clearly, but also I actively listened. And I engaged intentionally, right? Personally, face to face. And so that's when you know, and the community understands that they're being heard, right? So it wasn't any kind of, miscommunication about what they needed, or especially if it's a personal type of nonprofit, right? So, they knew that the services that we were providing was actually what they wanted.
Yeah.
Not what they needed, not just what they needed, it was what they wanted. So I think that's very important, especially if you're talking about a service-based nonprofit. So yeah, just kind of depends on what
it's important to kind of capture that in the plan, write it out, and paint the picture in terms of that community engagement plan.
And then articulate it back to the community. Let them know that you are listening, you hear them. You want people to understand very clearly that you are walking alongside them. So don't let it be misunderstood that you're doing something to them.
Yeah.
You're doing it with them.
Yeah. And I'd add real quick to that. I think we can get intimidated by that kind of idea and maybe go overly formal, right? And there's a difference when, say, whatever Amazon is about to do a $100 million investment project in a nonprofit and the kind of needs assessment that happens there versus I'm just getting started and I want to help this zip code, right? And I want to walk with this zip code. And so it can be like, it can be an informal thing, but you're doing it with intention. So I don't think
Very good. Monique?
And I just wanted to add, being a parent of a special needs son that's mainly nonverbal, I'm his advocate. So for any of us in here, we're our target audience advocate. And so when we're talking to people, mine is single mother, so I'm basically selling what I've done with my life and my story, But for him, it would just be like, if we wasn't doing this for these girls, this is X, Y, and Z, the situations they could be put in. So, you just want to be compassionate about, what we're doing. This is, like Will said, we're changing the trajectory of them being, childhood parents or in gangs or on drugs, not necessarily that that's the case, but, just really like pulling on people's heartstrings to just believe in the vision that you believe in and just get them on board. So that's for all of us.
Very cool. Leland, I'll get you in front.
How do you balance or structure the balancing act of the administrative side, the financial side, the branding side, the recruiting side, as an individual or two-person organization?
Yeah. Well, can I take that one as, yeah. So as someone who did that with my wife, Tiffany, for years and years and years, our trajectory, like the short version is we moved into the neighborhood off of Dickerson Road, right near where those weird buffalo statues are. You know, you're like, what are those about? Right? Like we did right behind there. And we moved in with the intention of what does it look like to love neighbor as self and learn how to do it. That learning process was 5 years. Just learning, right? We talked about like the community assessment and all that kind of stuff. That was an informal, right? And then when we moved officially, so into 2011, into like launching a nonprofit, it started just as our own side hustle, right? And so we were like funding it out of our day jobs. And so what that looked like was really practical. It was like, we need granola bars for this thing. Who's buying granola bars today? You know what I mean? And it was like, oh, we went to Kroger. Oh, but hey, we can order from Amazon. So we had some really practical steps. And we never tried to outpace what the community was doing with us, with our vision, right? And so what that led to really get really practical in your question, you don't have to do all the things. You have to do the next thing, right? And so like if you're gonna run one site, let's say, for a project, right? Then all you need to do is work on what are the practical things that this site needs week over week or month over month. Write that out. Boom, you've got that. That's your project plan. You know what I mean? Like you know that. All right, what are the finances that would support that? Okay, cool. Here's the material cost. Here's the man-hour cost. That's what I'm raising money for. Boom, right? And it starts to really integrate well once you can get that down on paper as you go. Versus, I think myself included, I can suffer from what I think of as the tsunami of the project, right? And like, it just looks like this wave that's about to crash over my head. But as soon as I actually put pen to paper and I write out, what do I need in the next 3 months, the next 6 months, the next year? Materials, dollars, volunteers. Boom. Now I've got the next 12 months. Go.
The next step. What's your name? Oh, Dr. Baskin, you have something?
So on a smaller scale, since I'm just running the development office, I can tell you like some of the things that I did to not necessarily like that all the things kind of get to you. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned was just deciding beforehand where my boundaries were in terms of where the work was going to go. And so I think what happens a lot is that when one, there's no sense of urgency, right? Any urgency that you're creating is something you're creating. And if you're allowing it to flow to you and come to you and come to also from a place of ease and abundance, that means that you can decide that I'm going to give this much energy to this period of time. And then when I'm done, I'm tired to be done. And so like that's an hour for admin activities or 2 hours for admin activities. The thing that happens is what our brains will do is our brains will fill up the space that we have, right? And so if you're like, I'm gonna get some admin activities done, next thing you know, you're up to 3 in the morning doing stuff. And half the time you're up to 3 in the morning, you would probably like, maybe some scrolling happened, maybe some overthinking happened, some procrastination happened, all those different things are happening. But when you tell your brain, actually, we're gonna spend an hour on this from 9 to 10, and at 10, I'm done. Yeah. Anything that doesn't get done at that point, you just go ahead and say, do I actually need to get this done? Is this important to have this done right now? And I think the other thing too, to a point that Will had made earlier, is that recognizing like do more of the things that you actually enjoy. And begin to kind of like, even at your early stages, creating a community of people that you can tap into to support you in certain things. And so people like to volunteer, like to help their friends. And so even if it's just like, hey, I need help making some phone calls, or like inviting a friend over and saying, hey, can you help me to actually get through this? Or going to organizations or companies like Fiverr and paying $5 to get someone to do like something for you. For a nominal investment. And so those are different ways that you can kind of create some structure, boundaries, deciding beforehand, and then bring in some people.
Yeah, I hope y'all are putting these gems in y'all's pocket from the strong panel. In the back, go ahead.
I wanted to ask, how did you find a trustworthy and affordable like bookkeeper, being a finance specialist when you're in the building stages? Like,
Yeah.
so- yeah.
I'm gonna answer from my perspective and then hear from everybody else. So what I did, I talked to business leaders that I knew, who had really stable, solid businesses, and asked them who they were using for their bookkeeping, right? And if they would recommend me. And sometimes they're like, oh man, honestly, it's crazy. I don't know if I want to keep using them. I'm like, cool, next one, right? And you can do this. You don't have to quote unquote know business people. You can be like, oh, I go to this restaurant and I always see that owner. Hey, next time I'm in there, who do you use to do your books? You know, like ask those kind of questions, then call those people and share the mission and vision with them and see how they respond, right? And for us, I found one business leader who had this bookkeeper, a small mom and pop kind of shop. We met for coffee in East Nashville back in whatever it was, by the time we went to like file our nonprofit paperwork. By the way, that was 2011 to the end of 2014 before we filed nonprofit paperwork. That's how long we were just doing the work, right? And she met us for coffee, and we were like, we're gonna try to raise $40,000 next year. And I thought she was gonna say, y'all are crazy, right? Instead, she's like, I love this idea. Let's go. Here's your chart of accounts, right? And that next year, by the grace of God and a lot of, sheer, boldness that outpaced my ability, right? We ended up at 88,000, right? And the bookkeeper was the only one who saw it coming. So you can find those right people. Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. Is Lori Smith here? Lori she sent in a question. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anybody's question. She asked, how are non-profit structures where they can also earn income? She says she's been told that there are different type structures, designations, which allows income within the nonprofit.
Hybrid models, I wouldn't be able to speak more than that.
Yeah,
They're hybrids? Yeah, they're hybrid models, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ways to do this, but the social enterprise model is a big one these days. And we could do a whole thing on social enterprise with Bernard Turner from Belmont and some others. But social enterprise model is basically you are a nonprofit, but you fund the work through the sale of a good. So like I know there's To Write Love on Her Arms is a group out of, I think they were launched in Florida to help teen girls with suicidal thoughts, right? And who were doing cutting practices. And the person who started it came from like the surfwear industry. So knew how to sell t-shirts. And so he was like, cool, I'll design a bunch of cool t-shirts, sell them to fund mental health work for young girls, right? And that's what he did. And so when you start from that standpoint, it is a nonprofit just means there are no shareholders who are making money. You can sell products, right, to fund the work. But how you want to structure that, depends on what you think the ultimate goal is. Yeah.
And it's really big in like non-governmental organizations, really big in other countries, like in Thailand, where there's a lot of sex trafficking and things like that. They do a lot of social enterprises. And think of like Thistle Farms and places like that.
Farms are great.
Yeah. So it really kind of depends on how it's structured and what kind of nonprofit that you want. Workforce development programming, and so it you have to look at your model.
Yep.
Who you're serving, what you want to do, what type of work you want to do, who you're serving. So think about. Have you already started one?
No, I have not, but the workforce development is an arena that's in, and so I was trying to make that make some sense to me. And so now I see that it's possible. I just gotta make sure that I structure it right.
Yeah, I will say, y'all, when I first got started, I had people over and over again tell me, well, philanthropy is going away, so donations are going away. You really need to just sell a product to fund the work. And that is not true. Right. 2% of the GDP of America is donated every year. That's billions of dollars, right? That's 2%. It's twice as high as any other country in the world, right? The second runner-up is 1%. So the money for donations is there, right? So don't let people drive you to be a product company if you don't want to be a product company, right? Because everyone's gonna be like, why don't you sell more t-shirts? Like, I've never sold a t-shirt. I got into this to help the kids, not to sell t-shirts, right? So do it if it lines up with your passion and your skills, but don't do it if it doesn't. That's wrong.
Thank you.
Alon, you had a question?
Yes. What is the best, or I'll ask it and I'll explain what my part is. What is the best resource to get stats relevant to health issues in my situation? My nonprofit is, we are trying to, I guess, find facts and about obesity awareness, things that can prevent, things like that, because I'm new in that. So I guess more so that my co-founder texted me this question, so I need to know it, but just what the resources, I guess when we were talking about the resources and the stats, how to find relevant health issues or showing where obesity is up, how we can help bring it down, but just different things like that will be a good place for me to start with that.
How to get stats for your nonprofit?
So there's like a number of like government websites, like the Department of Health and Human Services has like different offshoot websites that they can be kind of clunky to actually navigate, but they're there. Where I probably would start is I would do like a Google search of other organizations that are doing work in that field. Because they'll probably have some statistics or even like a white paper on those topics. And then you can just start to like go, oh, who are they citing? And then go to their website. Just like, lovingly borrow. Borrow like some of those same sources. That would be a really good place to start, and then you'll find something you trust in.
One of the things I found helpful is if you go and sit down with the health department director in your zip code, just as a nonprofit, have a conversation with them and they can share that data with you. That's close.
I was going to suggest the same thing. So it's always a good idea to talk to local people because, you have places like Meharry Medical College, your health department where you get to touch people, right? And people, you get to build relationships. And so you get opportunities where you sit on panels or you get to engage. And it's really not about selling your products. You get to build relationships. And so that's the best kind of engagement that you want. And so you get firsthand knowledge. And so you can share resources and things like that. So
I had two I want to offer. The census website, and they have a lot of open source data that you can use, and also the Center for Disease Control probably has some information as well.
And you can also reach out to the bariatric clinics because Vanderbilt has one, Centennial has one, the local hospitals will already have it. So you just borrow
and you can y'all make no bones about it. You can straight up take, but it's called a footnote. Use a reference. Like we get so much data from the Small Business Administration, right? And we just link back to that. And anytime somebody's like, well, Will, don't you have more robust local data on blah, 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 blah? And I'll be like, man, as soon as Metro Nashville starts collecting it, I will have it. Because I've met the data scientists at Metro Nashville. And they're like, yeah, well, that's a great idea. We'd love to have that data. That's a whole side. Are we still streaming?
Is Erica Hollingsworth here? Erica? Huh? I'll get your question. She's not here, so actually we will go to this area.
Okay. This is more about maybe how you overcame something. Because I know that most of us, we graduate from the academy, you might have a product business or something like that, so you've done this entrepreneurship stuff. But as for nonprofit, when you've been doing this work, has there ever been a time where you were like, I can't do this no more, I'm done? What contributed to that? And then, I know that's the work that got you in first. So
we're going to church. No, I love it.
I
No, that's a great question. Who wants to go first?
I want to reflect on this. I can go first. So yes, I definitely got to a place doing fundraising where it's just kind of like, oh wow, why did I do this? If I look back on it, coming from a sense of not enoughness that I was feeling around like I was fundraising in Rhode Island, which if anybody knows anything about Rhode Island being, Black and Rhode Island is kind of a thing. Especially if I got, it's kind of a thing, especially the very insulated community where everyone lives there and stays there, and then you come in there, you're new, not from there, and people are like, who are you? Why do you look like that? Why are you so brown? Yeah, why are you so brown? But it was definitely coming from a place of not enoughness in the sense of like, do I have enough contacts? Do I have enough resources, whatever else? I would say that the thing that really got me through that was just like one, like tapping into my community was a really big part of it. And so like you have like these different, you have resources, you have like the channels that are with you that can definitely help you at these moments. And I started at those times to start to build a community of other people that were doing some similar work to me, which was super helpful because it was just like, we began to share resources, began to share like encouragement. So it was just like, I have this thing that I'm struggling with trying to figure out how I do this. You can begin to tap into your community of people that are here, right? That are doing similar work. And not necessarily just to sit there and commiserate, but to actually, because that becomes toxic after a while, and figure out how you can pull your time, your talent, your skills to move the needle on whatever that issue is. And so that was super helpful. And I think the other thing that was very helpful for me when I got to that point was creating some boundaries, because my not enoughness was fueling me into hustling quite a bit. And so once I kind of recognized that, oh, I'm enough, like the need to do all the things that caused the burnout started to go away. And the thought became more about what exactly, how can I get into a position where I'm doing work that actually has the greatest impact. And sometimes you don't know what that is, but like allowing yourself essentially to be open to getting that, understanding where that comes from. And so that can come from people around you who are giving you advice or like whatever. Open yourself up to guidance from God, from people, from wherever. I think that was also a big thing. Like one of my business mentors told me once that like, do you ever see a tree forcing themselves to grow? Right? And like, and I'm just like, cool, let me think about that. And so it's kind of like the same thing. It's just allow yourself to flow into growth and allow yourself to lovingly change as you need to basically like allow yourself to almost like blossom into more of the things that will to support the vision that you have. Like it's already there. And so, and when you're doing that, I think burnout becomes less of an issue because you're not worried about leaving things on the table. So, not for like read my
We got you got some, Alicia? What you saying?
I don't know. No, but I do think just to kind of add a little bit, it's a journey and not a destination, right? And you do have to give yourself a lot of compassion and grace.
Yes.
We can be so hard on ourselves. Yeah. Because we are not meeting our own expectations. Yeah. Leland, you hit it, right? The nail on the head. You gotta be everything to everybody, to yourself, to your mama. Just everything, right? And so we can't be it today. We gotta leave something for tomorrow, right? For next year, the next 10 years, we gotta leave some growth in there. And it's a lot of stuff we don't know, right? And we have to find people who are going to help us along this journey. It's people that we don't even know who's going to help us, right? We are, today, we're not even the people we're going to be tomorrow.
Yep.
And we have to leave that, we have to give ourselves, enough room to be, and become that person.
Yeah.
And so I just leave us with, give ourselves enough compassion and grace to grow into the people that we are going to be, who God is ordaining us to be.
Amen.
Right? And so, and all of that what Dr. Baskin said, right? And then just giving ourselves some room to grow. And God is going to, and even the people that we're going to ask for money, they may not even be ready.
Yeah.
Just for, just a little quick story. I went and I had an idea. And I was like, man, our people, we need this resource. So I walked in, I was like, they're gonna bring this resource to North Nashville, and I went in and they were like, no, we can't do it right now. And something came over me. I was like, okay. I walked out and God said, and we aligned, like, God told me, and all the time. And God ain't saying nothing, But for real, it was real this time. It was real, I said, don't worry, she'll come. And I was like, oh, for real. So I walked out like 6 months later, phone run. I don't even know how she got my phone number. He's like, hello? Oh, you still got that thing available? More than what I even came in asking for. Right? And all I had to do was wait.
Ooh, that's a word.
All I had to do was wait. And it was more than what I even anticipated. What I was asking for, I'm talking about 100 times more. So sometimes you just have to wait. Okay, I'm sorry.
They hit me right here.
Right.
I'm still processing it. I'm like,
Yeah.
My word.
I think Will had one last comment.
Just one last practical thing on all this, y'all, like to get really practical, because I know sometimes when we talk about the journey of knowing ourselves and the journey of trusting God, right? That is self-work to the heaviest degree, right? And that requires that we carve out the space to do that. Not like once a year where we go on that weekend trip, but every day, right? And I would just encourage you guys, your flourishing is the thing that you bring to your organization. It's what you bring to your family. It's what you bring to your community. And so figuring out what that looks like for you, right? Mind, body, spirit, and not doing it to fix yourself.
That's right.
Right? Like, and honestly, y'all, we're gonna get real here. This is the mantra I start every single day. Every single day, I say, I am not a problem to be solved. I am a person to be known and enjoyed. And then I say, you are not a problem to be solved. You are a person to be known and enjoyed. I put my wife's name in there, I do that. I put each kid's name in there, I do that, right? And when I move in the world from that place, I am curious, I'm open, I'm empathetic, and I'm inviting, right? But when I move from the world that I'm a problem to be solved, then that inner critic is always telling me what's wrong. And then I see all of what you need to do differently too, right? And my inner critic is so loud that it just wants to share its critique with you too, right? So shift from problem to person to be known and enjoyed. Yeah, that's where I leave it.
Very cool. Well, everybody, we are unfortunately out of time, but if we can give a hand to our panel. Give a hand to yourself. If you had a question that did not